This is part 4 of our section on Hinduism. In this part, in this lecture, we're going to talk about worship. We're going to talk about the practical aspects of Hinduism, what people do. In the first week, it's pretty philosophy heavy. It's a lot about dharma, it's a lot about karma, it's a lot about these very complex ideas. But that's not really the meat of the religion. The meat of any religion we're going to look at is what people do and the way they think about what they do. And hopefully today in this lecture I'll give you a window into that. So I've started with a picture here of a Hindu temple. This is the interior of the temple. You can tell that you can see their images all over of various gods and goddesses. You can tell who that is. That is Shiva, right? That is Shiva and his dance of destruction. You can see that people are at different parts of the temple. They're praying. They're, kind of coming and going. For the most part, when people go to temples, you can kind of go almost any time and just do your thing. You can pray. You can leave a small offering in terms of incense or a monetary donation, and then leave again. You can see a priest back here. The priests are there to tend to the statues, the idols, and we'll talk about that today and what those mean within Hinduism. And we'll look at more pictures of various people in temples. And note that everyone is barefoot too. In Buddhist and Hindu temples both, you always remove your shoes before you enter a temple. I have a quote here from Mahatma Gandhi, who you probably have heard of. Is a very famous man. He won the Nobel Peace Prize, was an Indian activist. He said, "Hinduism abhors stagnation. Every day we add to our knowledge of the power of Atman, and we shall keep on doing so." So Hinduism abhors stagnation. It means Hinduism hates standing still. Hinduism is not about remaining the same. It's about constantly improving yourself. It's about trying to reach moksha. It's about using your dharma or following your dharma rather in all parts of life. Which we'll talk about as well. Hinduism is a religion that is based upon practice and doing all the time. And I've had students remark to me that one thing that surprises them about Hinduism is that Hinduism is not a religion where you just go to your temple on Sunday or on Friday or any time once a week and sit with everyone and do some sort of worship service and then go home. No, Hinduism fills all aspects of your life. And this week we're going to look at the ways that Hinduism fills Hindus' lives. And we're going to start today with Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga, if you'll remember, Bhakti Yoga is a path of devotion. It's worship. Today we're going to look at Puja, which is offerings that people give to the gods. We'll look at temples. We'll look at festivals. We'll look at a lot of pictures. So we talked about this before, but just to review, there are 4 kinds of yoga. Right? There is karma yoga, which is the path of action through selfless service, which releases built up karma without building up new karma. There's jnana yoga, which is kind of maybe the least spoken of yoga. It's a path of knowledge, understanding the true nature of reality and the self, studying the Vedas. This is especially the yoga of the Brahmin caste. This is the yoga of the priests. Not everyone necessarily has the means to study those kinds of things. So a lot of ways, jnana yoga is something that's for the Brahmin caste, the priest caste. There is Raja Yoga, which is the path of meditation and doing asanas and studying chakras and energy and trying to clear the mind that way. And then there's Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, which is what we're going to talk about today. So the idea here with these 4 yogas is kind of this idea that different people have different inclinations. Different people are better at different things, right? For some people, karma yoga, this doing selfless acts and volunteer work or taking care of others. A person might be more inclined towards that kind of worship. Another person might be more inclined towards meditation and kind of solitary practice. Another person might be more inclined towards study. You know, they might find union with the divine by thinking about what Brahman is and what the gods are and things like that. But the majority of people in India, and I would say almost all people, and probably all Hindus, utilize bhakti yoga in some way. And for most people, I think that's kind of their main path of union with Brahman is bhakti yoga. So then, worship. What does worship look like in Hinduism? So bhakti yoga is seeking union with the divine through loving devotion to manifest deities. So you don't perform bhakti yoga, you don't perform worship to Brahman. Brahman is not manifest. Brahman is kind of too big, really, for anyone to wrap their heads around. Rather, you turn to one of the many manifestations of the divine in loving devotion. That loving part is very important, right? You should have an emotional draw in some way towards God when you worship God in the form of Vishnu or Shiva or whoever. People perform bhakti yoga in the home. Most Hindus perform some small act of worship every day at a household shrine, an altar. We're going to look at a lot of the altars today. Pretty much every Hindu I know at least has a statue, if not a full altar, for the gods. And also in the temples, you can worship in the temples where their priests officiate worship services or offering services. So the act of making an offering and decorating the deity images, the different statues and idols, is called puja, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. The first part of puja is always to make eye contact with your statue or with your image. Now, this is hard, I think, for a lot of students because a lot of students that I have are used to a Protestant Christian way of looking at religion that says that, well, if you have an image of God, that's not God. If you have a statue, an idol, that's not God. That's false. But rather, let's try and move away from that way of thinking and look at this from a more Hindu point of view. The statues, the idols, are very much symbols of the deities, and there are ways of allowing Hindus to connect with the deity, first and foremost by making eye contact, right? There's this idea that if you take care of the images of the gods, you can gain those gods' attention and you kind of draw down a little bit of their essence. Into that image so that you can connect with them. We'll watch a video later this week where a woman talks about how she as a child, she had trouble with darshan. She didn't understand it. But as she grew older, she realized that darshan allowed her to calm her mind. When she first approached puja and devotion, starting by making eye contact with the deity, it made her clear her mind, it made her focus, it made her think about the God that she was worshiping. And so the idols really are really powerful symbols and really powerful parts of Hinduism. And we'll look at more of them later on. And then, so first you see the idol, you make eye contact with the idol. Then you make offerings in the form of food, incense, flowers, these little candles called diya. Hindus will sing songs, they'll chant. Sometimes they might recite the many names of the gods. And then the last part is prasad, where you take a little bit of food that has been given to the deity. And this is very common in temples, especially right before you leave a temple. Oftentimes a priest will give you a little bit of food that had been an offering to the gods. And by taking it and eating it, you're taking the blessing of that god, right? That food that's been offered to the gods is now blessed. So you're taking that blessing. And you're also, in a sense, you're eating with the gods, right? You're sharing their food. So that is kind of the last part of puja. So the interesting thing about Hinduism, as I mentioned before, is that in Hinduism, religion or dharma fills all parts of your life. And there are many, many kinds of devotion. So many that the idea is that devotion should be a constant part of your life. It shouldn't be just something you do like once a day or once a month or something like that. It's something that you should be doing all the time. And the book puts it well. The book says, the goal is to continually elevate the person above his or her basically animal nature. Right? So this constant devotion is constantly trying to elevate people and to remind them of who they are, what their reality is, and what their goal is of their own Brahman nature. So there are many kinds of devotion. There are 16 rites, 16 rituals that follow you throughout life. There's a ritual when a woman discovers she's pregnant. There's a ritual at birth. There's a ritual when a young boy or young girl starts their education, specifically their religious education. The boys get this long string that they wear around their torso for whenever they perform bhakti yoga, or some Hindu men will wear it all the time as a constant reminder of their Atman and things like that. And we'll see pictures today of men with the string on. Marriage, death, all sorts of things. The life stages, right, of education, householding, being a householder, being a retiree, and then being a mendicant. Those are life stages. Those are forms of devotion. Your caste, your social duties as you know, as a wife or a husband, as a member of your caste, as a member of your village. That's part of devotion to God. Home puja, homage to gurus, gurus are great teachers, and we'll have a chance to look at gurus in our next lesson. Homage to gurus is a form of worship. Fasting. Many Hindus choose not to eat meat, and that's part of their devotion. Prayer, making auspicious designs, which are sometimes called rangoli. We'll look at rangoli today too. Reverence to trees and rivers, which are oftentimes very large old trees and forests and great rivers are often considered to be manifestations of the divine. Rivers are most rivers in India are associated with one or another goddess, for example. The Ganges is a very famous example. Pilgrimages to famous religious sites, festivals. These are all forms of worship in Hinduism. So these are some images here of some home altars. Now this right here in the corner, this is a more well-off family, as you can tell, right? They have a large living room. They're kind of more well decorated. You see, this is their altar right here. They have a little stand where inside there will be a statue of one of the gods. They've decorated it with flowers. You can see they've spread out a cloth for puja, right? They've lit candles. They've put out fruit. And this right here, this is a priest. So you can pay a priest to come into your home and perform a special puja. It's not something you would do every day. It would probably be when you want maybe just a little bit, when you want a puja that has a little extra power to it. Maybe this family, it's an important time in their lives, or you might have a priest come into your business and perform puja when you first open the business, something like that. Or, you know, for spirit, of course, for spiritual reasons as well. So they're performing puja here. This couple right here, you can tell that they have a little bit humbler life. They have a kind of a small altar here, and they have a lot of pictures here. They have, instead of statues, they have pictures of the different deities, and you can buy these at all the temples. You can buy them in marketplaces. This is a Nepalese couple. Nepal is a country just north of India. It is where the Himalayas are. It's a Himalayan country, and they are Hindu as well. So this is a little bit of a poorer couple. You'll notice that this man has a book here. It's really common to have books with the chants and the songs in them for people to read. So part of being a child is oftentimes your parents, your grandparents will get you to memorize these chants and songs, but you always have these little books that you can use. You can see they have this colorful powders here. Do you see them? There's red and yellow and orange. These powders are called kumkum. And they are used oftentimes to make rangoli, to make auspicious designs, beautiful designs, which we'll see examples of in a few moments. And they're also used to, women will use the red powder to make a dot right here where their third eye is. Married women will make that, and that is part of devotion as well. It reminds them of the third eye. It reminds them of their spiritual nature. These powders, the red powder in particular, is especially used to worship the goddess. So it's very meaningful that women always use the red powder to make a dot right here over their third eye. So you can see they have milk or yogurt, they have incense, and they oftentimes will use these powders, red powders especially, to decorate the images. Part of puja can be decorating the image with kumkum, with flowers, anointing it with perfumes or scented oils or things like that. You take care of the images. You treat them with respect as you would the gods. And part of that is showing your respect for the gods. And it's also, again, trying to gain the gods' attentions and draw them down into those images. So you have to be respectful towards them. Here is a clearer picture of an altar. You can see this one's quite crowded. There is a lingam here, which we'll talk about. This. It's a symbol of Shiva. There's Shiva right there. There is Ganesh, and there is Lakshmi. It's very common to show Ganesh and Lakshmi in pictures together. Ganesh is the remover of obstacles, and he's associated with kind of good fortune. And Lakshmi is also associated with good fortune and prosperity, so they're often shown together. Right here, I thought this was an interesting picture. This is just a couple. They're performing puja. You can see the man has his food and the woman has a fire, and they're chanting. They just have a little tiny altar, right? So if Hindus don't have a lot of room, you might just have a very small place for an altar. And you can tell that they use this space as well for clothes and whatnot. That's just the space that they have. Can you make out what these two pictures are? What's that right there? That is Ram and Hanuman and Sita, right? And there, who is that? That is most likely Lakshmi. I'm pretty sure that that's Lakshmi. Again, very popular goddess. And down here, there's an image of a man. That's probably a guru, a great spiritual teacher. And again, it's common to have pictures of gurus that you follow or that you, whose teachings you enjoy on your altar. And notice too that a lot of times couples do puja together. It's considered best for a husband and wife to perform puja together in the morning, each morning. Someone was mentioning that in one of the discussions, that it was interesting to them that the gods often have consorts. They're often married, right? This relationship of marriage is very important in Hinduism. It's the idea of these two people taking care of each other, taking care of their household, of being a householder as one of the stages of life, which is a form of devotion in and of itself, taking care of your family. And also the creation of balance, right, between the man and the woman as kind of symbolic cosmic forces. So that it's considered much better for puja to be performed by both a husband and a wife together. So I found some pictures. I found a photo essay that I thought was interesting. And I would share some of the images with you. This is a photo essay of some Bollywood movie stars doing devotion to Ganesh during Ganesh Chaturthi, which is a large festival for Ganesh in India. So in honor of this festival, this Indian newspaper did a photo essay. So up here in the corner, this is really interesting. I've never seen an altar like this before, and that's why I included it. This man has chosen to put his image of Ganesh in amongst like a garden, a small indoor garden. And you can see he's praying, right, with his hands together. He has his diya, his little lamp, his little candle, his flowers and fruits and incense. And those are the kinds of things that are given for puja. There's a woman here, another Bollywood actress. This is a very large image of Ganesh. A lot of times, more likely you see altars, as in the last pictures we saw, where you have lots of different gods present. But probably just for this photo essay, they chose to use very large images of Ganesh to put emphasis on that. You can tell she's decorated Ganesh with flowers. She's put out fruit. She's praying. And here there's this man here. He's dressed as a priest, which made me originally think he was a priest, but someone online pointed out to me this man is actually just an actor. But he's dressed as a priest for the sake of these photos. You can see here he's wearing this long string around his torso. It's a string he would have been given as a boy, would have been replaced if it had become broken or fell apart. But again, that is part of devotion. Is a lot of men wear these strings all the time, and it is a reminder. It is a constant reminder of their nature. You can see he has a large fire here, and he is praying again. Someone else asked about Ganesh's brother, because Shiva and Parvati had another son, Skanda, the one who was born so that he could help defeat an army of demons. And traditionally, there are a lot of stories about Skanda and Ganesh having a kind of like a rivalry, for the affection of their parents. There's this one particular story I'll tell that at one point Skanda and Ganesh were arguing about who was faster, who was the fastest among them. And so Shiva and his wife Parvati was like, okay, well, let's have a race and let's see which one of you is the fastest. We'll see which one of you can run around the world first, right? So they say, okay, that's a good idea. So Skanda starts running. He runs very, very fast. He starts running around the entire world. And Ganesh doesn't run at all. He just stands there and he looks at his parents and he smiles kind of mischievously. And then very casually, Ganesh just walks in a circle around his parents. The point that he was making was that Shiva and Parvati, his parents and these gods, are the entire universe. They're the entire world. So to walk around them is to walk around the entire world, right? Because they are Shiva is the Lord of creation and destruction. He's the Lord of the universe. And that's a common story told, and we'll see that that in temples, in a lot of Hindu temples, there will usually be a path, like a hallway or a pathway that walks around the idols. You can walk all the way around the statues. And by doing so, the idea is that you're walking around the world. It's a reminder of that story. Some other people have also asked about kind of whether or not Hindus, believe that all of these stories are literally true or not. And I can't really answer that. I know that there are some Hindus that do take these stories very literally, and there are other Hindus who don't. But it's not really the point. Again, it's a very Judeo-Christian way of looking at religion that says, that looks at religion and its myths and says, did this really happen? And for Hindus, this isn't a question that is commonly asked. It's not a question that's asked of its followers. Do you really believe that this happened? That's not something that comes up. Rather than thinking of any of these stories as being true or false, people look at these stories as having truth, with a capital T. These stories have truth. They are truth. And they carry morals with them. They carry lessons. And they are myths of the way the entire universe works. And for some people, they are taken as being literally true, and other people they're not. But in general, there's not so much emphasis put on that. That's something in Christianity, a lot of emphasis is put on this idea that the stories within Christianity are all historically true. They happened. And that's just not the case in a lot of other religions. That is something that's very unique to Christianity, and Judaism as well, and to some extent Islam. In the East, it's not so much a question. It's less about what you believe, and it's more about what you do, and it's more about the way you live your life. Moving on, a little sidetrack. Here's some more altars. I just wanted to point out a couple things. This particular one if you can name some of these people, who's that? Lakshmi, I think. There's Ganesh, there's Hanuman. They're in the charioteer. Can you make out who that is? That's Arjuna and Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm positive that that's Lakshmi. You can see the gold coming out of her hands. But down here is Sarasvati, and you can see that the small puja is being given to her. There's an empty spot right here, right? So these particular people decided to pull down Sarasvati and give a puja especially for her. And people do that, right? You don't have to do that. You can give a puja for all the gods at once, or you can focus in on one particular god or goddess, maybe because you need that particular god or goddess's help in something very specific, or because maybe it is one of their festival days and you want to give them a little extra attention. There are a lot of reasons they could do that. Right down here, you can see in front of the altar there is an auspicious design. There's a lotus design there. I wanted to point that out. This here, I'm pretty certain that this is Lakshmi. I got this picture a long time ago. Someone else suggested to me that might be Durga. It looks, the way she's decorated, it looks like Durga. But I'm pretty certain it's Lakshmi, that this particular picture was taken during Diwali, which is a large festival, and Lakshmi is celebrated during that festival, as is Rama from the Ramayana, which we'll talk about shortly. The point is, though, this is definitely this goddess's festival day. So she's been given her own place, and she's been given a very large offering, a very large puja on that particular day. And here is an older woman, and this, again, I'm not sure if this is Durga or Lakshmi, but again, it's a festival day, so she will be given her own puja on that day. So I want to take a moment and talk a little bit about the Shaivites, because I think they're very interesting. We're not going to talk about Shaivites and the Vaishnavites and the Shakti. We're not going to look at images of all of them today, though you see bits of them here and there. Clearly, this is these ladies, or the people performing these pujas here, will be considered Shakti in this sense. But I wanted to look at the Shaivites. As you remember, the Shaivites are people who dedicate themselves especially to Shiva, of all the gods. And they're quite interesting, and I wanted to look at them. This right here is an ascetic. We've talked so much about the ascetics. We've talked about Shiva and the way he where he wiped his body in ash, and he went out into the wilderness and meditated and let his hair grow long. And we've looked at paintings of that, but this is an actual man, an actual ascetic who has lived his life this way. You can see he wears very little. He's very thin. He doesn't eat a lot. He is likely sitting outside of a Shaivite temple and receiving donations. It's his only way of making money. He has a broom here. It is a symbol, certainly, of purification, and it is very possible that he uses that to bless people. That's what I'm guessing he keeps it there for. They give him some money, and he'll give them a blessing. This is probably on one of Shiva's festival days. You see there are lots of men sitting outside this temple. So that gives you a sense of kind of the extremity of Shaivite ascetics. There are many kinds of ascetics, and there are many followers, and there are many followers of Shiva who aren't ascetics. I don't want you to think that this is what it means to follow Shiva. That is not what it means to follow Shiva. This is a man who is following the path of Shiva in a very specific way, by giving up the things of the world. It's a little bit comparable maybe to a Christian monk, a vow of poverty, of chastity, of a life of quiet meditation and prayer. And one thing you'll find in Shaivite temples is the Lingum. We've talked about the Linga a lot. The Linga is a representation of Shiva. It is a representation of the creative force of the universe. You can tell it's this very it's almost formless in a sense. It's this really ambiguous symbol, and it is a really ancient symbol. We have examples of Linga going back millennia, many, many millennia. And people treat it as they would an image of Shiva, and specifically his creative power. And I'd like to stop and consider that perhaps the ambiguity of its form, its kind of formlessness, kind of gives this symbol a lot of power. The best symbols we've seen, we talked about in the first lecture, or the second lecture, the cross, the yin yang, the swastika, they're all very subtle symbols. Good symbols shouldn't hit you over the head with their meaning. They should allow for some interpretation, and the Lingam certainly does. In one sense, a lot of religious historians have pointed out, it is a phallic symbol. It is often placed inside kind of a cup, like a cup thing that is called a yoni, which represents Parvati. And so it is a symbol of the male and the female and the creative force when the two come together, because again, in Hinduism, that is considered a sacred force, the male and the female. But also in a lot of ways, I think the way a lot of people see it in India is that it is it's creative force, but it's not formed because it is full of potential, right? It's this unformed mass that could become anything, right? Think of the universe before the Big Bang, or think of a lump of clay before a sculptor gets his hands on it. Could become anything. So it has this great potential, and it has a lot of power. So it is treated, the lingam is treated with great respect in Hinduism, as you can tell this man here in the way it's being decorated here. You can see there's like a multi-headed cobra head over it. Again, that's a symbol of Shiva. You find that with images of Shiva a lot. Back here we have Ganesh. That would be Brahma back there with his multiple heads, and I'm not sure who is in the middle there. And then you have a cow, right? Because a cow is a sacred symbol of the goddess. Some people were asking about that as well. The cow is not a manifestation of the goddess, but it is a symbol of the goddess, right? So it's not quite the same as an idol of the goddess, but it is to be treated with great respect, and that's partially because the cow and the milk products that come from dairy products that come from a cow are so important to Indian people's diet. It's an important part of keeping the family fed, and the milk that it produces represents the goddess in a lot of ways, right? And they use the milk to make cheese and butter and yogurt and a lot of other things that are important staples in Indian diet. You'll see in a lot of places around the world, food and the source of food is often treated with great reverence. You'll see in Japan, the god of rice, Inari, he's not a god actually. He's a kami. The kami associated with rice is treated with great respect, right? And is associated not only with food but with prosperity and health and long life and things like that. So cows are well respected. As people pointed out, it is taboo, not only illegal, it is taboo to hurt a cow or to eat cow meat. So this particular temple, again, has several images, including the lingam, and here's a well-decorated lingam. This is Shivaratri, which is a festival for Shiva that is, I believe, in the spring. I could be wrong about that. It is most extravagantly celebrated in the north near the Himalayas. There's a region there that is sacred to Shiva. It's said that that's where Shiva on earth lived and meditated. And the Himalayas are also the source of the Ganges. And Shiva is also the source of the Ganges, so he's associated with the Himalayas in northern India. In any event, you can see they're having this huge parade. This is really common for festivals. People are dressing up as Shiva. They're in the tiger skin. They have tridents. This man here is probably from a temple because he has a very elaborate costume. It looked like it took a long time. They even put a spouting fountain coming out of the top of his head to represent the Ganges. And you can see here he has his third eye with all of his energy and power coming out of it. Here's a woman who likely is dressed as Parvati. Here's another man. He has a snake, and he has the matted hair, the moon, all of it. So these are like really joyous occasions. They're exciting. They take the idols or the statues of Shiva or whatever god associated with the festival out of the temple, and they carry it around the city, and people all, rush up to it and want to touch it, and people are dressed up, and anyone can dress up and participate in these parades. It's a lot of fun. It's very exciting. But especially the temples are expected to put on, to have large floats with very elaborate costumes and things like that this time of year. And this is similar for many festivals. They do this for many, many festivals. These are some temples here. I try to use a variety of temples to show you. These are more southern Indian temples. In the south of India, they're more likely to have these temples that are kind of tapered, and they have all of these. These are just all little statues of all the different gods and goddesses acting out different scenes from different myths. Right here, this is a large image of Durga. You can tell she's on her lion. Here, this is a ruin of a temple. This is an ancient temple, and you have to remember that Hinduism is thousands of years old, and we still do have these old ruins of temples that are now, especially in the last 30 years or so, have been restored and are being restored by archaeologists and declared World Heritage Sites and things like that. And I've been to a few of these in India when I was there. I can tell you that Hindus still visit them and revere them. They're ancient places of worship. Well, a lot of times they're not always usable inside. They might be, really dilapidated inside. It might be dangerous to go inside if things are falling apart. So sometimes they've reset up the altars, and sometimes someone might just put a very small shrine or small altar to the side, one or the other side of the doorways for people to visit if they want to perform puja or give a prayer or something like that. But there are temples. There are many, many temples all over India. So when you enter a temple, you remove your shoes, as I've pointed out already. Now, and then usually in the temples, the priests will be performing the puja, right? They'll be performing very special pujas. And people can kind of come in. You can see people here they come in and they've kind of gathered together. They're usually special days during the month. The priests decide what those days are according to astrology, according to days that are holy to the gods. And those are the temple days that large masses of people will come and perform puja together. Otherwise, on regular days, people just kind of come and go as they want to. So on these larger days, though, on these more special days, there will be a large offering. People come together. I've been to one puja where people were reciting the Ramayana in Sanskrit, or someone might be reciting the many names of the gods, or there might be mantras, or there might be meditation. It's much less organized than you'll find in the West. In the West, we're all about, you must arrive here at this time, and we will start at 9 a.m. on the dot. In India, in general, Indian people aren't as concerned with punctuality. So a lot of times these things just start when they start. They might just start after lunch, which means somewhere between 2 and 4 o'clock. And so people just kind of show up slowly, and you'll see, groups of women kind of congregating together, talking and waiting for things to start. You'll see men standing around talking, waiting for things to start, and it starts when the priests are ready to start it, right? It's casual. How about that? It's more casual. In larger cities that are more westernized, I think things are more punctual. Things start at a certain time more. Because people are very busy. But in the countryside especially, things kind of start when they start. So this family This couple here has come to this temple this particular day for a special puja. So they've brought some offerings, and they're going to pay the priests here to perform a special puja for them. These people here have come together on a special temple day to perform, and this lady's just come on her own. Interesting thing to keep in mind about temples is that the gods that are there, those images that are there, are considered in residence. They're in residency at that temple. They live at that temple. So part of what the priests do when they're not performing puja or officiating these rituals is their job is to take care of the idols as they would if they were the gods themselves. So, for example, in the morning, the gods are taken out. There's like an inner chamber that they're kept in at night, and then they're brought out in the morning. They're bathed. They're offered food in the morning as they would, like breakfast. They'll be decorated, and then they're brought out to this main area where people can visit and pray to them. And the gods have certain visiting hours, so to speak, like kings and queens who keep court, right? There are certain times of the day when you can go and visit them. During the hottest part of the day, when most Indians might rest or take a nap, because it gets very hot in India, the gods will be taken back to that inner chamber as well to rest and brought back out again later in the afternoon when it cools off. And then at nighttime, the decorations are removed from them and they're put back to rest again. So the reverence with which they are treated, the way they are treated as though they were almost the gods themselves, that's what draws the attention of those gods and brings them down, and is a great sign of respect as well. And I think it's really interesting too, the way the statues are treated. It's symbolic, but yet in a certain way it's almost literal. It's both figurative and it's literal. The fact that they live there, but they're not the actual gods, but in a sense they are, because their essence is drawn down into them by gaining their attention. It's not a clear line as to how real or not real the idols are. They're very they cross all those lines. And I think it's really kind of interesting and exciting. Here's some more temples. This is an older temple. You can see here they have an elephant, a trained elephant, and they have him dressed as Ganesh. And he is Ganesh then. He becomes an idol of Ganesh. And I've seen elephants like this in India when I was there many years ago. And usually what you do is you offer a rupee, which is like a cent. It's the smallest currency, and then the Ganesh is trained to wave his trunk over your head, and you gain a blessing that way. When I did it, the elephant smacked me in the head with his trunk. I think it was an accident, but I was never sure if maybe he was displeased with me with the offering I gave him or what, but that's the way it works. So this is southern India as well, so you know. But yeah, this is not an uncommon thing to see. Sometimes if you go out into the wilderness, you find ascetics. They will make a point of taking a rock, just an ordinary rock, and they'll take that kumkum powder and they'll make a circle, a colorful circle around the rock, and by doing so, the rock becomes an idol. And the point of that is, and so if you see it, you have to show respect for it, right? Because it's been marked as a representation of one of the gods. And the point of that is, from the ascetic's point of view, is to remind people that there's God in everything, right? There's God in the trees, there's God in us, there's God in everything we see. And you have to treat the entire world around you with respect because God is everywhere. So here's this original image again, right? Now you have some context, you have a sense of what they're doing. A couple women, this woman's brought her son with, and maybe it's the morning, maybe it's the afternoon, and they've come in to do a little bit of prayer. And the priest will be taking care of the idols and things. I thought this was really beautiful. This is actually a very large temple in England. It's a Vaishnavite temple, which means it is specifically dedicated to Vishnu. And there is a very large there's a large population of Indians in England, and in London specifically. And there's a very wealthy sect, Vaishnavites, that had this temple built. And it's very famous because it's you can tell it's all made of marble. It was very expensive. It's gorgeous, and it draws large groups of Hindus to worship there, as well as tourists to see it. I just want to show you that. And again, this is a temple for Vishnu, who is like a king, and so you can tell that this temple, it's very regal, it's very royal, right? And there you can even see a small image of Vishnu there with Lakshmi. They're always shown as being very close, as touching, as being very affectionate with each other. So the other thing that I wanted to tell you about, the other form of worship of puja I wanted to show you was Havan. Havan is an ancient Vedic ritual. We have references to Havan in the Vedas, right? This is probably one of the oldest rituals in India and still practiced today. It can only be performed by Brahmins, who are priests, like this priest right here. These offerings are put in the sacred fire. The sacred fire is a manifestation, or is a representation of Agni, who is the god of fire. So traditionally, thousands of years ago, the gods that were more related to nature, like the god of fire, the god of the storm, of the sea, of mountains, they were more worshipped. And over time, kind of this narrative of this triumvirate of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva became more popular and widespread. One part of this ancient form of kind of more nature worship that remains, though, is Havan. So offerings are put into the fire, and they are offerings for Agni specifically. But you can also give offerings to Agni to be conveyed to another god, right? So you can have a Havan that's for Vishnu, and the offerings that you put into the fire will be conveyed by Agni to Vishnu. It's considered a very powerful thing. Usually these are performed for laudation, so in order to praise the gods, or for supplication, which means to ask for something from the gods. Either way. You can see this fire pit is decorated with flowers, is very elaborate. Here you see a large group of people have come to witness this Havan and to give offerings to it. Here you can see a little Shiva in his dance of destruction. So you can tell that the offerings that are being given here are going to be conveyed to Shiva. Down here, this is a very special Havan I want to show to you. This is also a very ancient ritual. This is a marriage ritual, a Hindu marriage ritual. And they're usually traditionally performed with a Havan, right, with a fire. See, they have the bride and groom are all dressed up. Usually brides dress in red for their marriages, and they wear lots of jewelry, and the men wear these necklaces of flowers. It's very beautiful. And so all these offerings are given to Agni. This is ghee, which is basically butter. There are some flowers, there's flower water, there's fruit. All these things are put into the fire, and then the man and the woman are joined over the fire. And then the last part of the ritual is that they will stand up together, and they will walk around the fire 3 times. And they will recite these ancient vows that have been recited for many centuries, where the man says, "I will guide you and I will lead you." And the woman says, "You are my Lord and I will follow you." And they walk around the fire 3 times. You can see here there's a coconut. I recently learned the coconut is a symbol of virtue in India, specifically because coconut trees grow in tropical places. Coconut trees can drink salt water. The other plants will die if they absorb salt water, but coconut trees can absorb salt. But then they produce very sweet fruit. So the idea is that the coconut is a symbol for transformation. It's taking in salt, but it's creating something sweet. So it's a symbol for, especially for the groom, transforming himself or changing himself to make himself sweeter for his wife. And many couples will take that coconut from the ritual and they'll bring it home, they'll put it on their altar, and will always be a symbol for them of their marriage. So now, lastly, we're going to quickly look at Diwali, the Festival of Lights, which is one of the largest festivals in India in Hinduism. This is a really important one. Here we have a rangoli, right? I've been talking all about them. You can see they've made it into this beautiful star shape with all of these little diya lamps. So Diwali is, I think Diwali lasts maybe 10 days. I might be wrong about that. It's a long festival though. It celebrates the end of the Ramayana when Rama and Sita and Lakshman were ended their exile and were allowed to return to their kingdom. And at that time, the people of the kingdom were so excited for their return that they lined the streets with these little diya, with little lights to guide their way back into the capital. It is also associated with Lakshmi, the goddess of prosperity, for Sikh people. Now, there's another religion in India called Sikhism that is somewhat based in Hinduism, but is separate than Hinduism. For Sikhs, it remembers the day when one of their gurus, their great gurus, who was put in prison under the tyranny of a Muslim Shah, if I'm not mistaken, when this great guru was released from jail. You can see here's a little Sikh boy. You always tell Sikh men because they wear turbans. It's part of Sikhism. So it is the Festival of Lights, and it is all about lights and lanterns and, stringing Christmas lights and lighting candles and fireworks and making these huge symbols on the ground. This is a temple ground. They've made like a flower symbol here, and they've written out something. I'm not sure what it is. I think that is a reference to the city that they are in. It's very exciting. There's lots of food, there's lots of firecrackers, there's lots of everything. Here again is a Sikh man. You can tell from his turban, and the background is a Sikh temple that's been being decorated. Here they've made a swastika out of these little diya, out of these little lights. This woman here has made a rangoli outside her home. I included this picture because I thought this was really interesting. Most times when people, women will make these rangoli, it's kind of part of their part of celebrating the holidays is cleaning the home, and because it's also part of the new year, cleaning the home and then decorating it with lights and with rangoli. Usually what they do is they make swastika, or they make flowers like lotuses, or sometimes they'll make the Om symbol. And this woman here got really creative. It's the Om symbol, but it's also Ganesha's head. Can you see that? So it's both Ganesh and it's the Om. So she must be like a very artistic person. That was pretty cool. So I want to include a picture of it. This is at that large temple in London again. Again, it's a Vaishnavite temple. It's associated with Vishnu. Rama is an incarnation of Vishnu. So Diwali is huge within the Vaishnavite community. You can see it's a very wealthy temple. Like you see the large amounts of food they have put out for this puja. And this woman, I don't think she's from this temple. I just include this picture. She's dressed up as Ram from the Ramayana, and she's likely at a temple now herself, and there will be large parades like the one we saw for Shiva, with everyone dressed up as characters from the Ramayana. A lot of people who dress up as Hanuman, the monkey with his tail and everything, and people dressed up as Sita, and people dressed up as other incarnations of Vishnu as well. So it's a really exciting time. It's a time when families get together, and that's a great time of celebration.